Also new tonight, the search is intensifying for a Stockton woman who mysteriously disappeared after a night out. 23-year-old Daylene Carlson was last seen on August 7th.
At the start of this case, 3 men talked to police and said they had contact with Carlson the night she disappeared.
A 23-year-old woman stepped out the door of her aunt's house in Stockton, California, and promised she would be home by 3. She never made it. By morning, her phone was silent and her bed was empty. No call, no goodbye, no reason, just a promise she'd never broken before, suddenly broken. Within hours, her family was walking the streets, calling her name. Within days, her face was stapled to poles across the city. And within 2 months, in a cornfield 30 miles from where she was last seen, they would finally learn what happened to her. Real quick before we carry on, drop a comment and let me know what city or country you're watching from and what time it is there right now. On the 6th of August, 2011, Daylene left her aunt's house to go out for the evening. Before she went, her aunt called after her from the doorway. One simple thing: be home by 3. Daylene said she would. Then she walked off into the warm summer night, alone. 3 in the morning came. The door didn't open. 3:30. 4. Her aunt lay awake, listening for the sound of a key, sending texts that no one answered. By sunrise, everyone in that house knew something was wrong. When morning came and there was still no word, the family started calling around. Friends, anyone who might have seen her. Nobody had. Her aunt called the police. And here's where these cases get difficult. Because in those first hours, there wasn't much they could officially do. An adult had been out of contact for a few hours. It was too early to file a formal missing persons report. But something about it didn't sit right. So the police logged it anyway. And the family went out into the streets themselves, walking the neighborhood, checking the places she liked to go. The day went from hot and bright to cool and dark, and there was no sign of her. Before she'd left the house, Daylene had asked her cousin to take a quick photo of her. She wanted to check her outfit. In that picture, her dark hair is down. She's wearing a black and white top and ripped blue jeans. It was the last photo taken of her, and it became the picture the whole city would soon be looking at. The next morning, detectives started where Daylene had started, a bar called Finnegan's. She'd been there many times before. It had quickly become one of her favorite places to go out. One of the managers remembered her from that night. He said she'd spent a lot of the evening outside and that nothing had seemed unusual. Nothing had stood out. But the people she'd been with that night, that was where the story got complicated. Before we go any further, it's worth stopping for a moment. Because to understand what was taken, you have to understand who Daylene was. She'd grown up in a small town in Idaho. Friends described her as sporty and outgoing. She liked snowboarding, fishing, camping, long walks with her dog, Maddie. The kind of person who filled up a room and made friends fast. In July of 2011, she made a big decision. She packed up her life and moved to Stockton, California, to live with her aunt and cousin. She had a plan, and she'd worked hard for it. Years of saving from restaurant jobs. She'd enrolled at a local college to study child development. She wanted to work with kids. She'd only been in town a matter of weeks, long enough to start learning the streets, to start putting names to new faces, long enough to make a few new friends. She was trusting, open, the kind of person who liked people and wanted people to like her. So the detectives had a night to reconstruct, and they had 3 men who'd been in contact with Daylene before she vanished. The first was her on and off boyfriend, a 25-year-old named Jacob. He was honest with police about the fact that things between them had been bad. A few days earlier, they'd had a serious fight. He admitted he'd been drunk and that he'd grabbed her arm as she tried to walk away from him. He said he'd heard she'd been talking to another man and that it had gotten under his skin. He told police he'd deliberately arrived at the bar before her that night. They'd argued, and at some point, Daylene had ended things with him for good. But Jacob said she left the bar before he did, and that he didn't see who, if anyone, she left with. Here's the part that mattered. After she left, Jacob said Delaine called him, again and again, close to a dozen times. During one of those calls, he heard a man's voice in the background, and she'd sent him a text saying she was drinking at a friend's house. The friend's name was Jason. The second man was someone Delaine had been messaging, named James. When police looked into him, his story checked out completely. He'd been out of town that night, and several people confirmed it. He was ruled out, which left the third man, Jason. Jason was a mutual friend, and this is where the bar's own cameras started to fill in the night. The footage showed Delaine outside for a while, smoking, before she moved back inside at about 10 to 1 in the morning. There were a lot of people around, and at one point, a man put his arm around her for a moment, then walked behind her down the corridor. That man was Jason, 25 years old, another mutual friend. He even shared a house with James, the second man police had already looked at. A little later, Delaine went back outside, and this time she was talking to Jacob. She looked animated, moving her arms around a lot. It matched exactly what Jacob had told police, that the two of them had a heated conversation that night. Then she went back inside. Jacob stayed where he was, finishing a cigarette with a friend. By 3 in the morning, Finnegan's had closed and everyone had gone. But here was the strange part. Delaine had somehow left without being caught on a single camera. So had Jacob, which meant the police couldn't say what time she walked out or who she walked out with. When police spoke to him, Jason told them a simple story. He said he and Delaine had parted ways at the bar. He said he'd offered her a ride home, but that he'd had to leave without her, around 1 in the morning, because his grandmother had texted to say his young son was sick. He said he went straight home to take care of the boy. His grandmother backed him up. She said Jason had gotten home around 1:30. So now the detectives had a problem, because Jacob said Delaine had told him she was at Jason's house, and Jason said he'd left her at the bar and gone home. Both of those things couldn't be true. For a while, the investigation stalled. The leads from the bar ran dry, so detectives did the slow, unglamorous work.
Also new tonight, the search is intensifying for a Stockton woman who mysteriously disappeared after a night out. 23-year-old Daylene Carlson was last seen on August 7th.
At the start of this case, 3 men talked to police and said they had contact with Carlson the night she disappeared.
We just want her home, safe.
Carlson's cousins held a flyer displaying her photos today. The family has been fraught with worry since Carlson disappeared last weekend. She was last seen at Finnegan's Pub and Grill very early last Sunday morning.
You know, I just want my family to, you know, have peace and get, you know, get my aunt, get her daughter home.
We hope, there's a hope that, you know, we would love to find her safe, but as time progresses, it looks more grim.
For now, investigators plan to be here all afternoon, and we're told that Carlson moved here from Idaho to start a new life. She had plans to attend Delta College and was living with family when she disappeared.
They went business to business across the area, asking for security footage, any camera, anything at all. And eventually one of them gave them something, a 24-hour store not far away. The timestamp read around 1:30 in the morning, and there, on the footage, was Delaine buying alcohol with a man. The man was Jason, the same man who had told them to their faces that he'd left her at the bar hours earlier and gone straight home. They brought him back in. They gave him a chance to tell it again. And he did.
What time did you get home? At about 1:20, 1:30.
He repeated the same story. Home by 1:30. Took care of his son. Then they showed him the tape, and it fell apart.
A lot more of what's going on. Right. Okay? Wait a minute. Wait. I left the bar with Daylene to food.
Now he remembered. He said he had left the bar with her, that they'd gone to buy alcohol together. But, he said, he'd dropped her back at the bar afterwards before going home. That was the second version of his story. Over the course of this investigation, detectives would eventually count 5 different versions. 5. Each one told after the last one stopped working. As they pressed him, it changed again.
Jason, let's make it better.
Let's make it better right now.
Okay?
Did you guys have sex?
No.
Jason.
Jason,
Jason.
we had sex and we hung out for a little bit more and then she said she wanted to go home.
Now he admitted they hadn't gone back to the bar at all. He said they'd gone to his house, that they'd had sex, that afterwards she was upset, that she wanted to go home, and that he'd driven her south, dozens of miles, and dropped her off somewhere at her request. He said he felt terrible about it. He said that as the days passed and she didn't turn up, he'd gotten scared, because he knew he was the last person to see her. So he'd lied, to protect himself. The detectives had a feeling in their gut by then, and they asked him, plainly, "Where is she? Where's her body?"
Where are we going to find her body?
Help us find her.
Help us bring her home.
Her family deserves it
Do you
too.
have a family? She doesn't have she deserves it.
I know that she does.
So let's do anything to her. Jason.
Don't do this. Please, really.
And that's when Jason asked for a lawyer. They arrested him, kidnapping, holding Delaine against her will. But a feeling isn't a case, and the district attorney looked at what they had and said it wasn't enough. There was no body, no physical proof of a crime, just a man who'd lied and then changed his story. So Jason walked out, free. He even spoke to the local news. He said it had been a rough few days. He said he hoped they'd find her, that he wished the police would find the facts before they arrested somebody. He said they'd been questioning his mother, his grandmother, everyone, that all the fingers were pointing at him and he didn't understand why. He said he'd never hurt anyone, that everyone who knew him knew that.
Gilly told KCRA3 earlier this week that Carlson was at his home in those early morning hours Sunday, but left on her own.
His family stood behind him. They said Delaine had been at the house, yes, but that she'd left, alive and well, the next morning. But quietly, the evidence was building against him. There was footage from a gas station the following morning. Jason, filling up his car. And on that footage, he's seen wiping his arms and his shirt. When investigators cleaned up the image, they could see he was covered in dirt. And there were the texts. Because in the days after Delaine disappeared, messages kept coming from her phone. One said she was somewhere on Country Club and that her phone was dying. They arrived even as detectives were starting to believe she was already dead, which raised a question nobody wanted to say out loud. If Delaine was gone, then who was holding her phone? Who was sending those messages? The search widened. Detectives turned their attention to a river area not far from Jason's house, a muddy, overgrown stretch that had been used before as a place to dump things.
Police out on the Calaveras River searching for any signs of a woman who disappeared more than a week and a half ago. This is exclusive video from Livecopter 3 HD right over the search. 23-year-old Daylene Carlson hasn't been seen or heard from since August 7th. Police aren't saying at this point what led them to the Calaveras River. The search is taking place just north of the University of Pacific campus. That location just about 2 miles from the Food for Less grocery store where she was last seen, and just 2 blocks from the home of a man who was initially arrested in her disappearance.
25-year-old Jason Kelly, of course, remember, was arrested this week. He was arrested on Monday on charges of false imprisonment and kidnapping. Now, he was released again on Wednesday afternoon, but police say he's still a person of interest. Newly released documents show that police believe Jason Gilly has been lying to them since the first time they questioned him. The documents show that Gilly first told officers he wasn't with Daylene Carlson the night she disappeared. But former boyfriend Jacob Evangelista told police that at 5 Sunday morning, he received a text message. Daylene said she was at Jason's house drinking, but that she would be leaving soon to come to his house. This was the last time Jacob has seen or spoken with Daylene. Gilly later said he and Delaine went to his home, had sex, and then an argument ensued, but he gave her a ride. The report states that Jason got on the crosstown freeway and then south on Highway 99 for approximately 40 minutes until stopping at an unknown location where he claims he let Delaine out of the car. And for the first time, we are hearing Daleen's phone send a text message late Sunday morning. At about 11:25 Sunday morning, Gilly's roommate received a text saying Daleen said she was somewhere on Country Club and that her phone was dying. James said he did not know if it was Daleen that was sending these messages, only that they were coming from her phone.
The text message is just that. It's texts that come to you, but who's sending that? It could be sent from anybody. Anybody could have had control of that phone and been sending those messages.
Search for Daleen Carlson has now lasted more than 7 weeks. Here's a look back. Daleen was last seen August 7th leaving Finnegan's Pub. Then August 15th, police arrested 25-year-old Jason Gilly, who was seen leaving with Carlson the night she disappeared. 2 days later, Gilly was released after the DA decided not to file criminal charges because of lack of evidence. And then on August 18th, search crews looking for Daleen found a flip-flop that may have belonged to her in the California.
Weeks passed, then months. And then, in the middle of October, more than 2 months after Daleen vanished, a farm worker moving through a cornfield came across her. By then, her body had been exposed to the elements for so long that little remained but her skeleton. She was found unclothed. She had been shot from behind 5 times. One of those shots was to the back of her head. 2 more had struck her in the back. The way she lay told investigators something about her final moments. It appeared she had been clutching at her head as she fell. She had been on her knees, facing away from the gun. It had the shape of an execution. A black bra was found near her body. And a few days later, several miles away, searchers found her jeans.
Missing persons case to a murder mystery.
We have this new at 5. Tonight we now know the body of a woman found this weekend in a San Joaquin County cornfield has been identified as Daleen Carlson. We continue to follow this incoming information in this case out of Stockton.
KCRA 3's Rich Ibarra joins us now from the police department. So Rich, what's next now in this murder investigation?
Well, the identification of Daleen Carlson was made through her dental records, and now investigators will have to see how she was killed and link that with any evidence that may lead to her killer.
Couldn't believe that everything happened the way it did. I thought that she'd turn up somewhere. I'm glad the family can get some closure finally, but wish it was under different circumstances.
The examiner in this case was Dr. Bennett Omalu. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he's the forensic pathologist who first identified the brain disease in professional football players, the man portrayed in the film Concussion. He's one of the most respected in his field. What he determined was this: Daleen had been shot. There was a wound to the back of her head, fired at close range, so close the skin around it was marked with soot. Casings were recovered at the scene. And there was one detail that told the investigators, more than anything else, what her final moment had looked like. Her fingers and her jewelry were tangled in her hair. Her hands had been up around her head when the shot came. She had been on her knees, facing away. It had the shape of an execution. Once she was found, the case that had fallen apart in August started coming back together. Jason's grandmother, the one who'd given him his alibi, admitted she had lied. She'd done it to protect him. Someone close to Jason came forward and told police he owned a gun, and when investigators compared the casings found in that cornfield to test rounds connected to his handgun, they matched. Cell phone tower records placed the 2 of them together in the area where her body was found, and investigators became confident of what those strange text messages had really been. Jason, using Daleen's phone, sending messages to make it look like she was still alive after she was already dead. And then there was the motive, because when they went through the messages between Jason and Daleen, they found something the rest of the story hadn't shown. Over just 3 days, Jason had sent her around 200 texts, and they had grown darker, more demanding. He'd repeatedly asked her for her underwear, for photos of her, undressed. Daleen had tried to laugh them off, or she'd ignored them, or she'd told him no. The prosecutor's theory was this: Jason had a fixation. He assaulted her. And he killed her because he knew that if he let her go, she would report him. He killed her to keep her quiet. It took more than 2 years for the case to reach trial. By then, Jason had settled on his final version of events. He said he'd left the bar with Delaine, that they'd bought alcohol, gone back to his house, and slept together. He said she'd gotten angry afterward and demanded he drive her home. He said that in the car she'd called him a piece of garbage and tried to jump out of the moving vehicle, but that he'd locked the doors. He said he dropped her off in Modesto, got back on the freeway, and went home. The prosecution laid the whole thing out for the jury. The 5 stories, the footage, the casings, the phone data. And they made a point that's worth repeating, because a lot of people misunderstand it. The defense argued that the case was circumstantial, and the prosecutor pushed back. He pointed out that DNA is circumstantial. Ballistics are circumstantial. Fingerprints are circumstantial. Circumstantial doesn't mean weak. It's how most cases are actually proven.
Well, I can tell you it was emotional for the jury today as they heard closing arguments from the prosecution. But the defense attorney says that cell towers could feed 3 different sites and that all the evidence presented today is circumstantial. Gilley's defense attorney says Gilley did not kidnap, rape, or kill Daylene. He says he admits to lying, but he says he lied to cover up his sexual relationship with Daylene because that would have been inappropriate to other friends. Now, the defense will continue its side of its closing arguments tomorrow morning, and then Jason Gilley's fate will be in the hands of...
In October of 2013, the jury reached its verdict. Jason was found guilty of first-degree murder and of kidnapping. On the question of rape, the jury couldn't agree, and a mistrial was declared on that single count.
More information tonight about the death of a Stockton woman and the evidence against the man accused of killing her. KCRA3's Melinda Meza was in court for the second day of hearings to look at the evidence against Jason Gilley.
Well, court just wrapped up a short time ago on this day 2 of Jason Gilley's preliminary hearing. Now it's up to a judge to decide if there's enough evidence in this case to go to trial. Gilley is accused of murder, rape, and kidnapping of Daylene Carlson.
He was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. His conviction was later upheld on appeal. To this day, he has never told the full truth about what happened that night.
At all.
So why'd you come down here today?
To be honest, I want to watch this step by step. I want to see this man go down for what he did to that girl. I got a 5-year-old daughter at home, so I don't feel any sympathy for him or his family. Anybody who lied for him, anybody that helped him out. I don't feel sorry for him.
How did you know Mr. Gilley?
I've known him for 20 years. He was my best friend. His story's changed so many times. I mean, I don't see how people can sit back and look like, if this guy's innocent, why is he continuing to lie?
Did you have any interaction with him after Daylene went missing?
Yes.
Describe that.
He had been staying in my house for a couple weeks, just to get away from it all. People coming by his house, bugging him. 20 years, I was trying to help him out.
How's his demeanor?
Cool, calm, and collected, really.
He wasn't worried?
That's what the eerie part is. Just cool, calm, and collected.
Wasn't worried?
Not at all. Didn't seem like it at all. Sat him down one night and I asked him, did you have anything to do with it? Do you know what happened to her? He said, no, I don't know what happened to her.
Has the murder weapon been found?
We have no murder weapon. We're well within our right to charge personal use of a firearm. We have ballistic evidence. We don't have the actual, we have not confirmed that we have the actual weapon itself, but there's ballistic evidence. We have a series of facts, forensic and otherwise, that would allow us to deduce one fact, and that the fact is that she was raped. We'll be put to that test at the preliminary hearing and have a judge determine whether those circumstantial evidence shows that or not.
Do you think anyone else was involved?
Nah. In my heart of hearts, I think it was just him.
You said you describe yourself as his best friend for all these years.
Yeah.
Are you supporting him now?
No, I can't support something like that. Can't support it. Just seeing all the facts that are starting to come out, can't support something like that.
Daylene Carlson had been in Stockton for a matter of weeks. She had packed up her whole life to be there. She had a plan she'd saved years for, a school to attend, a career she wanted, a dog back home, and a family who loved her, and every reason to believe the hardest part of her life was behind her, and the good part was just starting. Thank you for staying with me right to the end of this story. If you'd like to support the channel and help me keep bringing you true crime documentaries that are carefully researched and told with respect, go ahead and leave a like, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Every bit of support means more than you know.